It said, perfection is often unattainable, but consistency ensures progress. It's better to show up regularly and improve bit by bit than to wait for perfect conditions or flawless execution. With this, I, Manvi Saraswat, welcome you all in this fine evening where we are completing our 185th Graduate Scholar Talk series hosted by History Society Sakshay and IQAC. Together, we have built something extraordinary, and this milestone is a testament to our shared vision and relentless pursuit of excellence. The Graduate Scholars Talk series, which started on 7th February 2021, is an essential resource for graduate students, providing them with opportunities to broaden their knowledge, enhance their skills, and present their ideas on various topics. By fostering a supportive academic environment and encouraging community involvement, the series plays a crucial role in bringing future leaders and making a positive impact on the wider community. And we honor our organization's commitment to excellence and the incredible people who have made it all possible. And with gratitude for the past and optimism for the future, we look forward to even greater success. And the credit of it all goes to our very hardworking moderators, Mr. Shubham Tiwari, Mr. Ajay Gupta, Mr. Saurabh Singh, Ms. Samriddhi Kantpal, Mr. Shailendra Rathod, Mr. Manthan, and by Manvi Saraswat. And to our advisor, Dr. Manish Karmawar. Now, it's time to introduce you all to our very esteemed guest of honor for today, Ms. Diksha Ranjan. She's a graduate from Delhi University. She's majored in English literature as well. She's currently working as Director General of HWPL India, which is Heavenly Culture World Peace Restoration of Light. It is an international peace NGO which is headquartered in South Korea. Ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you here. I request your permission to start the program.
Welcome and thank you, everyone. And thank you so much for the introduction. It's such a pleasure to join all of you and to see many faces. So I request that if we can begin the program, that will be such a great blessing. I'm really eager to meet and listen to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And we would be taking her experience and remarks after the talk. So let's move forward where our speaker, Mr. Aman, would be presenting his views on the topic, the Treaty of Tordesillas and the birth of global inequality. Aman, the stage is yours.
Before starting the presentation, I would like to thank moderators and Dr. Manish Karmwar for providing me with this intellectual opportunity, and would like to extend my hearty gratitude to guest of honor, Ms. Diksha Ranjan, taking time for my presentation, and all those who made time to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aman Tripathi, and I'm currently pursuing my master's degree from the Department of African Studies. I completed my undergraduate in History and Political Science from Sri Aurobindo College. Today, I am honored to be part of the Graduate Scholar Talk series and to have the opportunity to speak on the Treaty of Tordesillas and the birth of global inequality. I'm excited to share my research and insights with you all, and I look forward to engaging in a meaningful discussion. The main objectives of my presentation are historical backgrounds of the Treaty of Tordesillas, in which I will explore several interrelated themes that reveal how historical understanding can be pivotal in conflict resolution and gaining psychological advantage. First, I will discuss the crucial role history plays in preventing conflict escalation and how nuanced understanding of historical context can provide a strategic psychological edge. With example of Treaty of Tordesillas, then significance of the treaty dividing world, facilitation of xenophobia and cultural superiority, in which I will delve into concept of xenophobia, its definition and its reverse impact on both colonizers and colonized. Understanding xenophobia help us comprehend how prejudices and fear of the other can deeply affect relations and power structures. Following this, I will address the idea of binary divisions and subjugation, how historical and ideological binaries have segmented the world into contrasting halves across the time and space. The binary thinking has influenced perceptions and interactions on a global scale. Lastly, I will explore how xenophobia and binary thinking have contributed to systems of oppression such as slavery and how these dynamics have led to diasporas and hybridity. And I will also discuss how these historical processes and European form of knowledge continue to manifest in contemporary neocolonial strategies. So during the during the research of this presentation, the key idea I developed is understanding the basic difference between the Eurocentric approach and Afrocentric or any other indigenous centric approaches. In the simplest term, in Afro approach that we see is what we say and write. But in Eurocentric, first we see, then write it with scope of stealing any perception, and then form it in document and use it for manipulation, which you will get what I am trying to say in later part. So, as an introduction, the Treaty of Tordesillas, signed on June 7, 1494, was an agreement between Spain monarchs Isabella I of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon and Portugal's King John II. This treaty established a new line of demarcation in the Atlantic Ocean, dividing the spheres uh, dividing the spheres of influence between the two nations. The line was set 370 leagues off the Cape Verde Islands, giving Portugal control over the territories in the Eastern Atlantic, which you can see is in the purple colors. These all countries were in the control of Portugal according to this treaty, and the line which is going through from the northwestern part of Africa, which is dividing the South America, is called the line of Tordesillas. So through this treaty, the line was set 370 leagues of the Cape Verde Islands, giving Cape Verde Island is an Caribbean island situated in the northern west part of Africa, giving Portugal control over territories in the Eastern Atlantic, while Spain was granted dominion over the newly discovered lands to the west, including much of the Americas, which is in the color in the map. The color yellow zone are the dominions of the Spain, deeply influenced by the context of Reconquista, when Spain and Portugal had just reclaimed the Iberian Peninsula from Islamic rule. This point is important, and later I will also discuss this also. After centuries of conflict, it became crucial for these two kingdoms to maintain good relations. They were now ready to turn their focus outward toward exploration and expansion. Portugal, in particular, had been pushing forward with maritime exploration along the Atlantic coast of Africa throughout the 15th century. This This exploration was a significant factor in shaping the treaty. Both Spain and Portugal were weighing to discover a sea route to India, which fueled their ambition for territorial expansion. Then came the discovery of Americas, which added a whole new dimension to their competition. This further escalated tensions between Spain and Portugal, as both sought to claim these new lands and resources for themselves. To resolve these conflicts and avoid war, the Treaty of Tordesillas was established. It aimed to define sphere of influence for both nations, drawing an imaginary line that divided the whole non-European world into two zones of exploration and colonization. Spain would have control over territories west of the line, and while Portugal would control those to the east. This highlights the significance of history and the importance of understanding it for making future decisions, especially in terms of material success and gaining psychological superiority. The form of knowledge Europeans possessed is emphasized documentation and historiography, which proved instrumental in their achievement and continues to have a lasting impact. Two other factors that contributed to their superiority at that time were the technology of navigation and technology of print. Navigation facilitated voyages and settlements. And the interesting fact about these navigations and these voyages are the main people who were involved in these voyages were the war criminals who were expelled from their own colonies. For example, the establishment of Cape Town or the Dutches in South Africa is one of the biggest example of these kind of voyages and navigation. While printing helped shape perceptions to subjugate binary idea and to serve their needs. In today's world, we often hear the term xenophobia, which may seem modern, but its features and impact can be traced back through history. The basic definition of xenophobia is the fear of contempt of strangers or foreigners or anything considered foreign. It includes the belief that certain foreign individual and culture pose a threat to the authentic identity of one's own nation state and cannot integrate peacefully into local society. सो जीनोफोबिया का एकदम सिंपल वर्ड्स में जो मतलब ये होता है कि किसी भी फॉरेन एलिमेंट से ये डरना कि कल को हमारी खुद की आइडेंटिटी या फिर प्रेजेंस के ऊपर कोई क्वेश्चन ना उठा दे. सो जो जीनोफोबिया का कॉन्सेप्ट है उसको हम लोग आज के टाइम पे मतलब इसको एज ए मॉडर्न कॉन्सेप्ट लेते हैं. बट लेकिन इन यूरोप और इन इन अर्ली यूरोपियन मोनार्क्स ये जीनोफोबिया जो था एकदम उनके रूट्स में ये जीनोफोबिया का डर उनके रूट्स तक चला गया था. उसका जो सबसे बड़ा रीजन था वो था अरब इन्वेजन इन 711 AD. This fear was deeply rooted in European monarchs and settler colonies, largely due to the Arab or Moorish invasion of Spain in 711 AD and their reign until the end of the Reconquista. तो बेसिकली रिकन्क्वेस्टा एक कैंपेन था जो शुरू हुआ था अरब इन्वेडर्स के अगेंस्ट टू एक्सपेल देम फ्रॉम देयर ओन होमलैंड, और जो 1492 में एंड हुआ था. और 1492 में एंड होने के बाद 1494 में ट्रीटी ऑफ टोर्डेसिलास को क्रिएट किया गया था. तो ये शो करता है कि रिकॉन्क्वेस्टा से उसकी हिस्ट्री से और जो अरब या फिर मोरिश इन्वेजन था उससे इंस्पायर होके इसका इम्पोर्टेंस समझा कि अगर ऐसी कोई ट्रीटी या फिर ऐसी कोई डॉक्यूमेंटेशन हम नहीं बनाएंगे तो कल को कोई भी ऐसे फॉरेन हमें इन्वेड करेगा और हमारी खुद की या फिर यूरोपियंस की, स्पेशली यूरोपियंस की आइडेंटिटी के ऊपर क्वेश्चन हो जाएगा कि उनके ही होमलैंड में फॉरेन रूल कर रहे हैं. So during this period, more than 4 dynasties ruled over Spain and southern Europe, including Umayyad Caliphate from 711 to 756 AD, then the Emirat or Caliphate of Cordoba from 756 to 1031 AD, then the Almoravid dynasty, then the Almohad dynasty, and at the end Nasirid dynasty. After which the Spanish and the Portuguese monarch decided to rewrite the Treaty of Tordesillas. This extended period of foreign trade, foreign rule, had a profound effect on the European identity, creating a deep-rooted identity crisis. In response, Europeans developed a form of reverse psychology, using their own experiences of conquest to justify their expansion into foreign lands and their mental coronation of other peoples. This psychological strategy ensured that no one could challenge their perceived superiority in future. The prejudices and the fear of other that stem from the xenophobia have long influenced relations and power structures, as seen, for instance, in European coronation of North Africa, including Algeria, Libya, and Mauritania. And interesting fact is that once Algerian Caliphate, which is called Cordoba Caliphate or Emirat of Cordoba, used to rule in southern European regions of Portugal and Spanish, and the same Algeria was colonized by these European settlers like French. So this shows how the reverse psychology of xenophobia works. It has crucial role in shaping the Atlantic world, particularly through its contribution to transatlantic slave. Sorry, I skipped this part. Actually, I want to show you this map. This shows कि कैसे जो यूरोपियन सेटलमेंट्स जो आगे जाके जिन्होंने पूरे नॉर्दर्न पार्ट ऑफ अफ्रीकास और लैटिन अमेरिकन, साउथ अमेरिका में कंट्रोल किया था एक टाइम पे, वो भी उन्हीं नॉर्दर्न अमेरिकन के अरब्स और मोरिश रूलर से कैसे उनके ऊपर कैसे वो लोग रूल करते थे. जैसे कि मिडिवल पीरियड में 400 साल के लिए अरब्स ने रूल किया था स्पेन पे, और 100 साल के लिए पुर्तगाल पे, जो कि येलो कलर और रेड कलर के जोन में इंडिकेट किया गया इस मैप के थ्रू. यू कैन सी. So this was the reverse psychology of xenophobia. So after this, I would talk about the consequences of this treaty. So it has crucial role in shaping the Atlantic world, particularly through its contribution to transatlantic slave. The treaty itself was a significant moment in history. It divided newly discovered lands between Spain and Portugal, with Portugal gaining control over the African coast. This division enabled Portugal to dominate the transatlantic slave trade, which became a cornerstone for the colonial economy. With access to African ports, Portugal established a monopoly on the large-scale transportation of enslaved Africans, to their colonies, particularly Brazil. This trade was essential to fueling their economic ambitions, settling the stage for centuries of exploitation. Meanwhile, both Spain and Portugal sought to meet the growing labor demands in their American colonies, particularly in sugar, tobacco, and cotton plantation. Enslaved Africans were forcibly brought to the Americas in large numbers to work on these plantations, making slavery a central part of the colonial economy. This expansion of slavery across the Americas was one of the most devastating consequences of the treaty. The treaty also laid the foundation for what would later to be known as the triangular trade, a system that linked Africa, Americas, and Europe. This trade network was fueled by the exploitation of enslaved Africans and becoming a driving force behind the economic growth of European colonial powers. The extraction of labor from Africa, the production of goods in the Americas, and the trade of these goods in Europe formed the basis of vast inhuman system of exploitation. So the whole transatlantic slave trade system ये एक बी टू बी बिजनेस मॉडल की तरह वर्क करते हैं, यानी बिजनेस टू बिजनेस मॉडल, वेयर पोर्टुगाल एक्ट एज अ फर्स्ट पार्टी जो कि अपने कंट्रोल्ड नदर्न एंड वेस्टर्न अफ्रीकन रीजन से स्लेव्स को एज अ कमोडिटी, मेन थिंग एज अ कमोडिटी उनको ट्रांसफर करता था स्पेन के डोमिनेंस वाले अमेरिकन रीजन्स में, और उधर स्पेन उन्हें खरीदता था और अकॉर्डिंग टू द नीड एंड डिमांड वो आगे जाके उनको डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करता था. ये पूरा ट्रेड रूट है, और ये इस मैप के थ्रू मैं शो करना चाहता हूँ कि कैसे ये पूरा ट्रेड रूट इस्टेब्लिश हुआ था पुर्तगाल एंड स्पेन के बीच में, और कैसे वो स्लेवरी को या एक ह्यूमन को कैसे कम्युनिटी की तरह ट्रीट करते थे, और कैसे उनको एज ए बिजनेस मॉडल उन्होंने पूरा बनाया था अपनी अपकमिंग कॉलोनियल सुपीरियरिटी या फिर अपनी एक रेशियल सुपीरियरिटी को जस्टिफाई करने के लिए. पर मेन थिंग इज दैट कि द होल ट्रेड अकाउंटेड इन रियल, एक एक अकाउंट का हिसाब है कि कैसे मिलियंस अवर पीपल वर ट्रांसफर्ड फ्रॉम वन रीजन टू अदर रीजन. और अगेन दिस शो द फॉर्म ऑफ नॉलेज यूरोपियंस हैव कि वो अकाउंट्स को और डॉक्यूमेंटेशन को कितनी ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस देते हैं. एक वेबसाइट है voyages.org.in, उस पे प्रॉपर विद नेम्स की कितने कितने लोग कहाँ कहाँ से कैसे कैसे माइग्रेट हो, कहाँ कहाँ पहुंचे, और उनको किसने बाय किया और उनको कहाँ पे सिचुएटेड किया गया, ये सब उसमें रजिस्टर करता है. और ये फिर से इनकी एक साइकोलॉजिकल सिक्योरिटी दिखाती है कि अगर वो डॉक्यूमेंट ऐसे चीजों को वो डॉक्यूमेंट कर सकते हैं तो इन फ्यूचर वो इनके प्रेजेंस को कैसे प्रूव करता है कि इतने हैवी लेवल पे उन्होंने एज ह्यूमन को एज ए कम्युनिटी ट्रांसफर किया एक जगह से दूसरे जगह को. So this is the main impact of documentation and history. The legacy of this system is still felt today by institutionalizing slavery in the colonies. The Treaty of Tordesillas left an inedible mark on the social, racial, and economic structures of the Americas. The use of slavery as a tool for advancement was just not a material gain, but also part of a larger binary idea that divided the whole world into civilized and savage, justifying the domination and exploitation of others for the benefit of European powers. With changing time and space, the branding of binary idea changed, but the objective doesn't ever change. Like in ancient, the binary idea is worked as a difference between civilized and savage, then believer and non-believer in medieval period, first spread of Christianity, and in contemporary progressive and regressive, which is labeled as global north and global south. तो बेसिकली बाइनरी आइडिया का मतलब होता है कि किसी भी चीज को दो हिस्से में फ्रेगमेंट कर देना, ताकि एवरीथिंग शुड बी लाइक ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट, और कोई स्कोप ना रहे अपने खुद का एक पर्सपेक्टिव डेवलप करने के लिए. हर चीज को एक ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट पर्सपेक्टिव से देखना कि ये सही है और ये गलत है. तो इधर बाइनरी सब्जुगेशन का मतलब ये है कि अपने फॉर्म ऑफ नॉलेज का यूज करके, डॉक्यूमेंटेशन का यूज कर, सबसे पहले जो एफ्रो कल्चर है वो एक ट्रांस ह्यूमन कल्चर माना जाता है. मतलब कि देवर नेवर बाउंड ऑफ बाउंड्रीज एंड लैंड्स, और उनका कोई ऐसा कोई परमानेंट सिचुएटेड प्लेसेस नहीं मानी जाती. दे ऑलवेज यूज टू ट्रेवल फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर बिकॉज दे आर ड्यू टू देयर ट्रांस ह्यूमन कल्चर और देयर नॉर्मेटिक कल्चर. सो जो आज के इन कंटेम्प्रेरी वर्ल्ड, द वर्ड्स लाइक रेफ्यूजी इज यूज्ड इन अफ्रीकन रीजन्स, और माइग्रेशन यूज किया जाता है, जो कि एक्चुअल में बेसलेस है अकॉर्डिंग टू मी. क्योंकि ये इनके कल्चर को इंडिकेट ही नहीं करता। ये एक यूरोपियन आइडिया है कि कैसे पहले दे केम टू अफ्रीका, देन दे डॉक्यूमेंटाइज्ड एवरीथिंग, उन्होंने हर चीज को डॉक्यूमेंट किया, लैंड फॉर्म्स को बनाया, और उसके बाद उन्होंने अपनी सिविलाइजेशन को प्रूव करने के लिए क्रिश्चियनिटी को इंट्रोड्यूस किया। फिर उससे अपने सिविलाइजेशन को सुपीरियर इम्प्रूव प्रूव करने के लिए ये बताया कि कैसे आप, मैं बिलीवर हूँ, आप नॉन बिलीवर हैं, आई एम सिविलाइज्ड, यू आर अनसिविलाइज्ड। और फिर उसके बाद उसके इम्पैक्ट में एक हाथ से मतलब इन सरकास्टिक वे, एक हाथ से बाइबल दिया और दूसरे हाथ से वही डॉक्यूमेंटेशन जो कि बना के उन्होंने दिया था कि दिस इज द पर्टिकुलर लैंड एंड दिस इज द पर्टिकुलर लीज, उसी हाथ से वही लैंड की लीज और उसकी ओनरशिप ली, ताकि कल को इन फ्यूचर वो अपने हिसाब से उसको एक्सप्लॉइट कर सके, उसके रिसोर्सेज को एक्सप्लॉइट कर सके। और ये आज के भी कंटेम्प्रेरी पॉलिटिक्स में भी ये चीज खूब प्रिवलेंट है, क्योंकि आज भी वो लोग रिसोर्सेज यूज करते हैं और उसको एक्सप्लॉइट करते हैं अपने अपने नीड के अकॉर्डिंग, और इन एक्सचेंज वो दे गिव एड एज अ कंपनसेशन कि एनी एनी अफ्रीकन कंट्री अगर उसको किसी भी परेशानी या फिर कोई भी मेन कोई कंसर्न, कोई पॉलिटिकल जियो पॉलिटिकल इशू, किसी भी टाइप का इशू चल रहा हो, तो दे ऑलवेज लुक फॉर एड विच इज लाइक एन कंपनसेशन from the same colonies or the ex-colonies which used to rule their territory. Then the Treaty of Tordesillas did more than divide land. It solidified a system of oppression that has had lasting consequences for centuries. The exploitation of enslaved Africans became a crucial meaning for European nations to assert their dominance and secure resources, all under the guise of colonial expansion. This system and binary idea created the diaspora issue, whose definition is vary from space to space. Like colonizers who settled in foreign land never been called diaspora, for example, Dutch or whites in South Africa. But at the same time, the Africans or any other indigenous native migrated to foreign land is still called and labeled as diaspora. Or the reason of migration was the same slave trade which was used by the same colonies. They migrated the whole people, and in current world they call them diaspora. पर लेकिन उधर सेम ही पेज पे जो कि इन्होंने पूरा एक दो दो कॉन्टिनेंट को कॉलोनाइज किया, वहां पे आके अपने हिसाब से रिसोर्सेज को यूज किया, अपने आइडिया को सब्जुगेट किया, बट कभी भी उनको हम लोग डायस्पोरा नहीं कहते कि, या फिर हम उनको डायस्पोरा क्यों नहीं कहते कि वाई दे आर नॉट कॉल्ड बीइंग कॉल्ड डायस्पोरा। दिस इज व्हाट शोज देयर साइकोलॉजिकल सिक्योरिटी, कि वो उस जीनोफोबिक का उन्होंने कैसे एक रिवर्स इम्पैक्ट डाल के अपनी साइकोलॉजिकल सुपीरियरिटी को एस्टेब्लिश किया कि नो वन कैन क्वेश्चन योर प्रेजेंस, कि आप यहाँ क्या कर रहे हैं। इन इन केस ऑफ डायस्पोरा एक एक चीज जैसे कॉमन फैक्टर कि हम कभी भी किसी के अंदर कुछ डिफरेंट फिजिकल फीचर या फिर लिंग्विस्टिक फीचर देखते हैं अपने से अलग, तो हमारे अंदर सबसे पहला क्वेश्चन यही आता है कि ये एक्चुअली ये यहाँ कर क्या रहा है, या फिर from where he belongs, which helps in tracing his history. But in case of colonizers in Africa, they established their idea that much concrete कि कभी भी उनके presence के ऊपर कोई question ही नहीं कर पाया कि what you actually doing here. The binary subjugation was form of knowledge settlers used to make everything black and white and limit the scope to rethink or create own perception for African culture, which is basically transhuman culture. They were never bound to boundaries, but European settlers introduced documentation to divide, then Christianity to civilize, and last, same thing, they take their land on lease to use their resource and then uh, exploit them and legitimate their subjugation. French, for example, the French in West Africa and Algeria, where they use French language as their mother tongue, Portuguese in Angola and Mozambique and Brazil, where they use Portuguese in their mother tongue, English in Burundi, Rwanda, Congo, etc., and Spanish in whole Latin American region, shows how efficiently they tackle the issue of xenophobia by subjugating their idea and culture, so no one can question their presence. Even culture zone is also divided in contemporary world, like the division of culture in form of west and east, which in contemporary world is prominent. There are a lot of talks going between which culture is more efficient and which culture is uh, more up to dated. There are a lot of debate is going on west versus east. This is also the idea of subjugation and the idea of binary subjugation in contemporary politics. The concept of cultural hybridity as a direct consequence of diaspora, migration, and colonial subjugation. Across the globe, we see how different cultures have blended due to the movement of people and the imposition of colonial rule, resulting in unique and hybrid cultural forms. Like in Brazil, for instance, Portuguese colonial rule fostered a rich blend of European and indigenous cultures, further influenced by African presence due to the transatlantic slave trade. One example of this hybridization is samba, a dance form that beautifully integrates African rhythms with Portuguese musical elements. This culture synthesis shows how African traditions were reshaped by the new world they were forced into, creating something is entirely unique to Brazil. Then in the Caribbean, we see similar process, the Spanish and Portuguese influence combined with African language, which gave rise to Creole languages, like Papamiento, spoken in the, Aruba and Curacao, then which is a fascinating example. Then blending African Spanish touch and Portuguese elements. These languages are living proof of how cultures through forced migration and colonization, adapted and merged to form new identities. Religious syncretism also emerged as a response to colonial dominance. Like in Brazil, the African spiritual practices brought by the enslaved people were blended with Catholicism, resulting in religions like Candomblé, which is actually a mixture of the African faith with Catholic saints, reflecting the resilience of African traditions while also showing how colonial forces shaped local spiritual expressions. Despite the imposition of Catholicism, African religions persisted by transforming and adapting to new conditions. In Latin America, Spanish colonization led to the emergence of mestizo culture, a complex blend of Spanish, indigenous, and African influences. This hybridity is evident in various aspects of life, from cuisine and art to social customs. The mixing of these cultures created new way of living, interacting, and transforming the social landscape of the Americas. Portuguese colonial rule also had a similar impact in Africa, like in Mozambique. Here, the Portuguese influence blended with local Bantu culture, leading to hybrid practices in language, cuisine, and religion. Portuguese loanwords become integrated into local languages, and traditional practices were altered by the colonial presence, showing how even in subjugations, culture can blend and evolve. In essence, hybridity is a constant consequence of both diaspora and migration, rooted in the forced movement of people under colonial domination. It reflects not only ethnic roots but also the complexity of colonial subjugation. While colonial powers often sought to erase or dominate indigenous and African culture, what emerged instead were vibrant, blended cultures and demonstrate resilience, adaptation, and the power for cultural exchange. So hybridity का जो main why it is important to study hybridity, because it shows the historical traces कि where do you belong, or if we go through historical traces and if we can study history properly, then we can question why what was the need of this large number of migration and the large number of transportation, or why slavery and the subjugation is important for the European settlers. So, in conclusion, firstly, I would like to appreciate the European form of knowledge, जिसमें उन्होंने हिस्ट्री को इतना एम्फेसाइज किया और डॉक्यूमेंटेशन को एम्फेसाइज किया कि एक पीस ऑफ एग्रीमेंट, एक पीस ऑफ पेपर जो कि इनकमिंग और आज तक स्टिल इट इज प्रॉपर, उसका इम्पैक्ट दिखता है और इतना इन्फ्लुएंशियल है, और इसके टर्म पे हम उनकी साइकोलॉजिकल सिक्योरिटी को भी समझ सकते हैं. तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल मैं उनके इस फॉर्म ऑफ नॉलेज को अप्रिशिएट करना चाहूंगा कि उन्होंने हिस्ट्री को कितनी ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस दी. एंड सेकंड थिंग इज कि अगर हम अफ्रीकन एग्जांपल्स ले, जैसे कि न्यूली decolonized countries, for example, Congo, either it's be Kenya, Uganda, after their independence or decolonization, सबने एक सिविल वॉर या फिर अनस्टेबिलिटी फेस की. तो उसका मेन रीजन था डायरेक्ट एडेप्टेशन ऑफ यूरोपियन आइडियोलॉजी, कि जो यूरोपियन फॉर्म ऑफ नॉलेज को उन्होंने डायरेक्ट अडेप्ट कर लिया. देयर वाज नो स्कोप ऑफ एडेप्टेशन. सो हाइब्रिडिटी हमें वो एग्जांपल देती है कि with customization and with fusion we can make our own way, and we can show how culture and the form of knowledge can work together to resolve lot of conflict and resolution. एंड द लास्ट पॉइंट इज फ्रॉम विच आई स्टार्टेड कि कैसे हिस्ट्री को यूज करके अपने कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को उन्होंने आगे एस्केलेट होने से बचाया, फॉर एग्जांपल द स्पेन वर्सेस पुर्तगाल। सो इसको भी हम आज के कंटेम्प्रेरी इशू में भी इसको हम लोग यूज कर सकते हैं हिस्ट्री का एग्जांपल लेके, कि हम लोग इन फ्यूचर कैसे किसी भी चीज को एस्केलेट होने से बचा सकते हैं, जैसे कि फॉर द इश्यूज लाइक द पैलेस्टीन और द ऑनगोइंग रशियन यूक्रेन वॉर और any other civil uprising, etc. Thank you. This is all. Hi.
Thank you so much, Aman. It was really very informative. And I request our listeners to, if please post questions if they have any doubts or they want to ask something to Aman. And soon we would be addressing them. So now I would be taking questions. The first question is from Samrithi. She's asking, how do you think that the treaty influenced the exploration by other European powers later on?
एक्चुअली इस ट्रीटी के थ्रू एक गेटवे खुल गया कि आप आगे जाके कहाँ कहाँ पे अपने कॉलोनियल एक्सप्लोरेशन और क्योंकि पुर्तगीज और स्पेनिश उनका उनका हमेशा से ये अपर हैंड रहा है कि नेविगेटिंग में वो दे वर ऑलवेज एक्सपर्ट, तो दे इंट्रोड्यूस सेवरल रूट्स, फॉर एग्जांपल रूट्स टू अमेरिका, रूट्स टू इंडिया। सो इससे एक गेटवे खुल गया, और द मेन रीजन बाकी यूरोपियन सेटलर्स उनके पीछे पीछे क्यों आए, क्योंकि ड्यू टू द हैवी इन्वेस्टमेंट डन बाय their locals onto them, so that forced them to go and colonize or to use resources in foreign land to justify the investment done in their own country. So ये ट्रीटी इंपॉर्टेंट थी इस पूरे यूरोपियन रीजन के लिए, ताकि एक गेटवे खुल सके आगे सबको नेविगेट और अपने अपनी कॉलोनाइजेशन को एस्टेब्लिश करने के लिए।
Okay, the next question is from Komal, and she's asking that how did the Treaty of Tordesillas impact the indigenous sovereignty and governance?
So मेरा आंसर भी मतलब मेरे प्रेजेंटेशन की तरह सेम रहेगा कि मेरा जो मेन फोकस है वो हिस्ट्री पे है, कि टीटी अगर किसी छोटे छोटे पार्ट, मतलब दे सेइंग कि स्मॉल मूवमेंट्स मेक हिस्ट्री, तो ट्रीटी ऑफ टॉर्डेसिलास कैन बी टेकन एज अ स्मॉल डॉक्यूमेंट और एग्रीमेंट, बट लेकिन अगर उसको एक वास्ट इम्पैक्ट से उसके हिस्टोरिकल ट्रेसेस को देखा जाए, तो जो शुरुआत हुई थी कॉलोनियल सब्जुगेशन की और कल्चरल सब्जुगेशन की वही से हुई थी, और सॉवरेनिटी के ऊपर अटैक या फिर उसके किसी की सॉवरेनिटी के ऊपर क्वेश्चंस करने का सबसे अच्छा तरीका होता है कि उन्हीं के फॉर्म ऑफ नॉलेज को या फिर उन्हीं के फॉर्म ऑफ कल्चर को धीरे धीरे सब्जुगेट कर देना और अपने कल्चर से प्लेस कर देना, जैसे कि यूरोपियंस ने किया, लाइक इन होल वेस्ट अफ्रीकन रीजन फ्रेंच इवन फ्रेंच कल्चर एंड फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज बोथ इज डोमिनेंट, तो उधर एक नॉर्मल नॉर्म है कि हु कैन स्पीक फ्रेंच फ्लुएंटली और हु लिव लाइक फ्रेंच इज एन someone who had gained something in their life। तो ऐसे टाइप का परसेप्शन क्रिएट कर देना, ये दिखाता है कि ये ट्रीटी कैसे एक छोटी सी ट्रीटी से इस पूरे सब्जुगेशन का एक रूट खुल गया।
Okay. Aman, if you could stop your presentation, stop sharing your screen, please. Okay. So the next question is, how did the treaty solidify non-European exploitation and contribute to current global power imbalances?
So सबके आंसर सेम ही है, वही सेम थिंग है कि इसी ट्रीटी से सबको गेटवे मिला और एक डिवाइड ऑफ द होल, एक जो एमर्जिंग न्यू वर्ल्ड था उसके बीच में डिवाइड किया, और उसके बाद अपने अपने तरीके से अपने अपने फॉर्म ऑफ आइडिया अपने नॉलेज को एस्टेब्लिश करने की कोशिश की, जिससे क्या हुआ कि जो उनकी पावर डायनेमिक्स थी वो बदल गई, और सेम वही थिंग कि उनका फॉर्म ऑफ नॉलेज इतना स्ट्रांग था कि वो आज तक इतना उसका इम्पैक्ट है कि उस पर क्वेश्चन करना या फिर उसको उसके एग्जिस्टेंस को खत्म कर देना इज नियर टू इम्पॉसिबल टिल नाउ, क्योंकि वो हमें आज भी दिखता है, जैसे कि उनकी नियो कॉलोनियल स्ट्रेटेजीज, फॉर एग्जांपल द ग्लोबल नॉर्थ वर्सेस द ग्लोबल साउथ डिबेट, जिसमें एक बाइनरी आइडिया का साफ साफ एग्जांपल दिखता है, कैसे कि पूरे वर्ल्ड को, पूरे ग्लोबल पॉलिटिक्स को दो रीजन्स में डिवाइड कर दिया, कि ग्लोबल साउथ है तो वो स्ट्रक्चरली और मटेरियलिस्टिकली अकम्प्लिशमेंट वहाँ ज्यादा होगी, और ग्लोबल साउथ है तो इसका मतलब कि दे आर लेस डेवलप्ड देन ग्लोबल नॉर्थ. So this shows the neo-colonial strategies and the example how this treaty opened the gateway for these kind of ideas and this kind of cultural subjugation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Aman. Thank you so much. And your presentation was really informative. And I guess our audience must have got the answers that they were looking for. So moving ahead, I would like to request our guest teacher for her valuable insights about the topic and about the platform.
Anvi, I think you left one. You are missing something.
Sorry, sir.
Manvi, you are missing something. The experience, GSTS experience with Aman.
Okay. Aman, if you could please tell us about your experience about the platform.
So actually sir, जब मुझे GSTS के बारे में पता चला था तो फर्स्ट आई सर्च अबाउट इट ऑन यूट्यूब, और मैंने उधर एक शॉर्ट देखा था जिसमें वन ऑफ योर मॉडरेटर ही वाज टेलिंग कि कैसे कि मार्क्स और एडम स्मिथ के आइडियोलॉजी को हम आज भी प्रैक्टिस करते हैं, या फिर उसको हम कितना इन्फ्लुएंशियल मानते हैं, और उसका जो कोर रीजन ये है कि they believe in their idea, or they believe कि they have to present their idea. So GSTS सर आई थिंक ऐसा ही प्लेटफॉर्म है जो हम जैसे स्कॉलर्स को स्कोप देता है कि हम अपने अपने आइडियाज को प्रेजेंट कर सके, क्योंकि माइंड में सर इतनी क्यूरियोसिटी रहती है हर चीज को क्वेश्चन करने की, हर चीज को कि ये है तो क्यों है, ये है तो क्यों नहीं है. आई थिंक सर ये भी डीकोलोनाइजेशन का तरीका है कि हम हर चीज को ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट ना देख के डिफरेंट पर्सपेक्टिव से देखें, और प्लेटफॉर्म्स लाइक GSTS इज evident for this kind of decolonization.
Thank you so much, Aman, and we wish that you'll stay connected with us for the rest of the series. And now, ma'am, I would like your remarks for the platform and about the topic.
Oh, thank you, everyone, once again. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude for Professor Manish, who has invited me today. And actually, just talking about the brief history, I used to be our Professor Manish student. As he also mentioned that I did the literature graduate from Delhi University Shyam Lal College. And currently, I am working as a Director General for one of the international peace NGO, which is headquartered in South Korea, and I am the in charge for India branch. So coming back to the topic, so actually, I really felt very awakened when Mr. Aman Tripathi was sharing his presentation, because I was able to see specifically the last thing what he mentioned about that history can really help us to reconcile and bring changes. So even today, the discussion about the European connection with the African connection, it was something which is very new for me. And I am not like a very detailed history student. So that's why it was a very new for me. And I think through this platform, I will be able to learn more and more, since my platform of working is also related to international relations, public affairs. So I think it is going to be very useful for me as well. And as our Mr. Aman also mentioned, I realized that history really opens a lot of multiple opportunities for developing a comprehensive understanding, not just for domestically, but internationally as well. So it just works like a mirror. That's what I realized. And as we say that history repeats, so something which has already happened in the past, it can help us to learn in order to make a better decisions based on the current situation. So I think having a very deep, comprehensive knowledge of history is really, really useful. And I really want to applaud and give thanks to Mr. Aman Tripathi, who has really done a very commendable job today. And I am very blessed to be here, and I continue to look forward to have more sessions like these. And most importantly, I would also like to connect my youth group, the youth wing of HWPL. So I think that will be much more amazing for the more bigger exposure. So I hope that we will be able to work and together soon and remain connected. Thank you.